How's it going, everybody? This is Brian for Pop Culture Crossing, and today we are talking about the 1960 Western film, The Magnificent Seven. So this movie is an adaptation in the Western genre style of the 1954 film Seven Samurai. So the movie tells of a gang of bandits who terrorize a small farming village. They come into the village, take a lot of the food, they leave very little food for the townspeople themselves, and not surprisingly, the townsfolk become agitated and fed up with this cycle. And, they're aware enough that they can't just, take up arms and fight the bandits themselves, but they need to seek outside help to be trained and, help fight off the return of the bandits. So the story is fun and entertaining to watch. The villagers send 3 men to, find someone to help them in fighting the bandits. Luckily, they meet the good-natured Chris, a Cajun and, former gunslinger who is willing to help their cause. And Chris luckily recruits friends, acquaintances, and even newcomers who are mostly former or current gunslingers, drifters, or bounty hunters to form a crew of 7, which comprise, not surprisingly, the Magnificent Seven. So they are led to the village where they help the farmers reinforce their village and train for the bandits' return. The Magnificent Seven storyline, is not a mindless Western film. Rather, it contains several nuanced elements, which is quite refreshing as a viewer in this genre. So the narrative is not a cookie-cutter story, as one would think when you read the plot synopsis or the tagline where, oh yeah, these good guys go in, help the villagers, defeat the bad guys, the end. I know what's going to happen before I've even seen the film. That's not the case here. The townsfolk and the 7 themselves all have distinctive, developments and character traits, and this reflects each character's, personalities, their idiosyncrasies, and their pasts, and their unique decisions to help defend the village and take on this job. The movie does a great job in just humanizing the characters overall. Yes, the 7 are gunslingers and killers, but the narrative is presented in such a way that their exteriors are peeled back and you are given a glimpse into their fears and anxieties, and this provides a 3-dimensional element and necessary depth for the characters. And additionally, great grounding for them as well. And, I was really pleased to see this, and, it's one of the things that I like most about this movie. So in general, the pacing, as I mentioned briefly here, is unpredictable, and this provides a breath of fresh air. You might think, where the story is going, especially if you read a lot or you watch a lot of movies or play video games, read comics, anything like that. Typically, chances are there have been examples where, you're seeing something or you're playing something or you're reading something and you're able to predict what happens in a story, and you can do this early on. And chances are you've probably been right, but that's not the case in this film, and I really admire that. So you may think you know where the story's going, but then boom, it takes a turn and you're like, wow, I didn't expect that, but hey, that's cool. It's keeping me on my toes and engaged with the film here. So the actors and actresses in this film provide strong performances overall. Yul Brynner as Chris Adams and Steve McQueen as Vin Tanner are kind of the de facto, leader and lieutenant of the 7. Yul Brynner being the main leader figure, and Brenner does a great job, in portraying a benevolent, trustworthy character in Chris, something that, really isn't seen a whole lot in the Western genre. Charles Bronson, Robert Vaughn, Brad Dexter, James Coburn, and Horst Buchholz all provide excellent performances as other members of the 7. Now, thankfully, as I've said here, each member is provided with enough screen time that the actors are able to communicate their own nuances and the individual personalities of their characters. So this is good not only for viewers, but also for the actors themselves to, really flex their acting chops and their muscles. So because of this, you just have the proper depth, and it's really appreciated. Eli Wallach does a great job as Calvera, the main bandit leader. And Calvera is a fairly unconventional bandit. You know, he's not really necessarily interested in just haphazard killing. He could just wipe out the entire village if he wanted, but then that mean he wouldn't have food, or he'd have to find it himself. And he does note that, you know, there's been changes in the resources and just developments in the Southwest and the Mexican area. So he and his gang are having to adapt to those things, and they're, you know, finding that it's been pretty hard. So they're kind of doing what they can in extorting the villagers. It's horrible for the villagers, but he does present his own case and point of view in a clear and, you know, fairly convincing way. Now, Pepe Hearn, Jorge Martinez de Hoyos, Natividad Vacio, Rico Alanes, Vladimir Sokolov, and Rosenda Monteros, you know, they're the main townspeople figures, and they provide sound performances in their roles here. And they just do a great job in conveying the helplessness of the townspeople and their plight in seeking help against Calvera and his bandits. But they, like the members of the Seven, also experience emotional and inner turmoil, not only with the situation, but with their decision to even want to hire outside help to fight the bandits. So this leads to interesting developments, and I'm not going to spoil anything here, so you got to go check it out for yourself. So the cinematography in the Magnificent Seven is great, from wide landscape establishing shots that capture the great Southwest topography to, you know, action shots that are pretty well done that kind of really make you feel like you're right there in the action. Just overall, it's a well shot movie. Some of the deaths, you know, can be excessively dramatic, but this is more of a sign of the general time in which the film was made. It's not necessarily a characteristic or a knock against the Magnificent Seven. Elmer Bernstein's musical score is impressive, beautiful, and pretty iconic. The film's main theme is quite well known. Chances are you've probably heard it before, and, you know, it's a great song, and it's, you know, really likely that it's gonna be stuck in your head after your viewing. And it just does a great job, the main theme overall, but just the soundtrack in general, in capturing the tone and mood of a grand Western style of film. So, additionally, other songs in the score here include a nice mix of Southwestern and guitar musical elements, which really add to the flair and accuracy of the locale in which the Magnificent Seven is placed. Now, Bernstein was awarded the only Academy Award for the Magnificent Seven, and that was for Best Music of Scoring of a Dramatic or Comedy Picture, and rightfully so. John Sturgis's direction of the Magnificent Seven is great. He does an excellent job with his adaptation of Seven Samurai, and this speaks to both Sturgis's ability to direct just in general, but then also to adapt a pre-existing story or production, but to give it his own unique character and taste and feel of the movie. And Sturgis does a great job in his management and communication of the heroic, iconic, and, you know, complex and nuanced Western movie here. I especially liked Sturgis's choice and inclusion of all the character developments and details. You know, it's more often than not, you know, in like ensemble type of films, they just focus heavily on, you know, kind of the leaders of them. So it was really nice to see the other characters outside of Brenner and McQueen get the necessary time that they needed to express their performance and, you know, the characteristics of their roles. So in summary, The Magnificent Seven is a fun, entertaining movie that has an important message. And the terrific characters provide great insights into, kind of their workings and the situation at hand, whether they're members of the Seven or they're in the townsfolk. And if you enjoy rich stories set in the Western motif, or even if you aren't a big fan of Westerns, but you just like great character development or stories of people helping others just for the sake of helping them, there's there's really no big incentive for the Seven to help the townspeople. The pay isn't that great. They're just doing it because it's the right thing to do. And if you like that type of story, then you want to be sure not to miss The Magnificent Seven. Have you seen The Magnificent Seven? If you have, let me know what your favorite part of the movie was. And I'm curious also to hear who your favorite member of the Seven was. Let me know in the comments below or on Twitter, and we'll keep the conversation alive here. If you haven't seen the movie, I really hope that you'll consider checking it out. Not only is it kind of a Western classic, but it does just have a good underlying message, and it's rich narratively. So if you want to read a review, please check out my written, more detailed review on popculturecrossing.com. And as always, if you enjoyed this review, I hope you'll consider subscribing, liking, and sharing it with your friends, and keeping the conversation alive on the social channels. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.